Welcome to the wonderful world of wine. We are your hosts, Mark Lindsay and Kim Simone, exploring all things wine with you. We're here every week on Franklin Radio, WFPR 102.9, and you can find us on Facebook at The Wonderful World of Wine. Hello again, everybody, and thank you for joining Kim and I today on Franklin Radio. We are here to discuss all things wine with you. How are you, Kim?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I am excited, Kim, because today we have a very special guest joining us from Bordeaux, France, Mr. Gerard Spatafora. I always have to watch how I say it, Gerard. I want to thank you for joining us. Gerard is representing bluewine.com, a website we discovered. How are you, Gerard?
I'm fine. Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Oh, we enjoy this because this is a topic. Kim and I are always looking for trends in the wine world, and bluewine.com was all over Newswire and wine business articles about your site, which is dedicated to wine and spirits documentaries. Can you please tell us, Gerard, a little bit about yourself and the company?
Okay, so I'm French from Bordeaux, and I'm also Canadian from Montreal. But I live in Bordeaux since 2006. I was working in the wine industry for years as an e-commerce manager, so selling wine online. And I'm passionate about wine. And at that time, we were also producing a lot of small clips, video clips for Facebook, social media to present all the supplier we had, the wine merchant. And thanks to this experience, we decided to go further about videos, contents, and documentaries, film, everything about wine.
So it started as a marketing endeavor and then sort of expanded from there?
Yeah, in the past, we had this experience as a marketing to attract clients, to be honest. And we were not satisfied by what we were doing because it was just advertisements or marketing. So we decided to go further and, produce documentaries, but also having this website, bluewine.com, to promote all the documentaries, reports, shows, film about wine and spirits all over the world.
So, Gerard, one of the things I know, I talked to Kim about this a lot. We've done shows in the past about TV shows related to wine, and we did a whole episode on movies and wine. And you, with this website, bluewine.com, really encompassed everything, an easy location for someone who loves wine documentaries to go to it and discover a lot more information about movies and series. And for me, it's very helpful because I'll see something and I have to go out and search it, or I'm waiting for someone to come across the newswire and tell me something's out there. Whereas your site, I can go there and I can see everything listed. They have documentaries, you have I'm trying to think of the how you list it. You had movies, you had documentaries, you had shows, and it's great. Is there a direction when you were putting this together? Were you like us that you always had a search and all over the place to find this stuff?
Yeah, it's a hard work. To curate all that content. Mm-hmm. But we did it for two reasons. So first of all, we did it as a research because we were looking for some content to understand what the wine lovers can find TV on and on streaming also as well. And the second reason was also to help wine filmmakers and film producers, because most of the platform, most of the TV channel consider wine and spirits as a niche. So it's very difficult for a filmmaker to promote his artwork towards the wine lovers. So this is why we decided to build this new website.
It's nice that you have such a variety of different kinds of shows or films that people can watch. You've got fiction, you've got nonfiction, you have them from many different countries. I just was browsing through the one that you have about wines from the country of Georgia, which is seeming to be a bit of a hot topic these days. I feel like Georgian wine is kind of everywhere. So you have all of these little bits from all over the place. So it's really I think it's really got something for everyone. And I like how you break it down where you've got, these are the documentaries, these are the films, these are the series. And, I feel like people can kind of browse where they like and figure out, what is the place for them to start on your site.
Yeah. So far, we only have 75 different contents with trailers, and it's just the beginning because we have a list of more than 300 different content as a film, documentary, and so on. So in the future, very near future, each week we will add new trailers and information about documentaries and film. So we will have something coming from New Zealand, Israel, Lebanese. Of course, France, Italy, Spain as well, the USA, as you can imagine. So it's unbelievable, all the content we can find. And I was also very surprised to see that you have fresh content. Something just produced in 2021, 22. So it's just the beginning.
And for our listeners, Gerard's website, it'll have a show and then the details, the people who are in the show, who's behind the show. And then, like he said, there's a little preview. Is there a future direction, Gerard, where you will then be taken to be able to watch or buy the show that you're previewing?
Yep. Today we just launched fundraising. In order to be able to build a streaming platform entirely dedicated to wine and spirits content. So probably at the end of the year, Blue Wine will become a streaming platform where people will be able to buy a content as a transaction. So you can just, watch a movie and or subscribe for a month or two. And we will also offer the possibility to watch everything thanks to advertisements.
Okay.
So it's going to be a kind of wine flix, but we need time and hard work to make it happen.
Yeah, I'm sure. To have it be like that one-stop shop for for being able to get all the content and not just information and trailers, and almost like a library of all of those content.
What was the story, Gerard, behind the name bluewine.com? Because when you Google search, it's very difficult to get away from blue wine. Right. The actual color blue wine topic. So
that was my original. I'm like, blue wine? Why are we talking about blue?
Yeah, and I'm surprised.
I thought that was old news.
Right. I'm surprised the domain was available. Right. Bluewine.com. You figure someone who produces blue wine.
Did you buy it 10 years ago?
I bought it in 1999.
Oh, so yes.
Yeah, in 1999.
Good for you.
Because I was already, a wine geek, a wine lovers. Well, and so I was in my early 20s, and at that time I was already working on internet. And I built like a Yahoo, a wine directory just for wine and spirits all over the world. So at that time, bluewine.com was just a directory, and you were able to find probably 35,000 websites just about wine, spirits, beer, alcohol.
Wow, that's great.
And then, this project ends in probably 2006 or something like this. But I kept the domain name, so I decided to relaunch the website as something different. And I think it's a good name because blue, in the cinema or in the TV, you always have the blue beam lights with the cameras and so on. So blue wine. Wow, that's it.
That's what I was thinking. It had some cinema background, so it makes sense now.
All right.
What about you mentioned we're putting more content out. Is there a partnership are you reaching out for partnerships to like societies, or you mentioned French? A lot more French wine, of course. So are you working with like the societies in Bordeaux to partner in getting content?
No, so far, we really want to help just the filmmaker or the film producer. So no matter if they are, independent, or if the film is produced by an organization like Bordeaux producer, Burgundy, Rhone Valley, or whatever, as soon as this is artwork, a piece of artwork. We don't want to promote advertisement video like you can find on YouTube and so on. Mm-hmm. There is already a place for that, but it's not the place in Blue Wine for advertisements. Just for real content, interesting, where the wine lovers will be able to discover, harvest, discover the varietals of different countries, discover the wine families, just something, the passion of wine. You were mentioning the documentary about Georgia wine. This is really impressive because, I mean, Georgia is producing wine for 8,000 years. So it's probably the first one on the planet. And when you watch the documentary, you can learn so much things about producing wine, natural wine in Quevry, amphoras, and stuff like this. So this is the aim of Blue Wine. We want to promote that kind of things.
And do you have relationships with the winemaker, not the winemakers, but with the filmmakers and the folks at the winery? And is that how you go about figuring out what is the good content to put on the site, or is it some other method? Because it really feels like a lot of what you have put up so far have a very sort of personal relationship, I would say. Like, it seems like the people that are making the films and folks that are the focus of the films, that there's this sort of cohesive personal element to all of them that it seems like you're trying to get across.
Yeah, so as soon as we find an interesting content, we try to connect with the filmmaker or the producer, and we ask authorization to post and to put the trailer available to our audience.
So it's not necessarily people that you already know.
Yeah, no. Absolutely. And so we asked the permission, and as soon as so now we are in contact with a lot of filmmakers all over the world. Mm-hmm. So we share the same passion. I mean, and you know, we are also a film production company, because we just produce a feature long, 90 minutes film documentary about the link from Bordeaux and the USA, thanks to the journey of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States. Because as you may know, he was a big fan of wine, and especially Bordeaux.
Right, French wine in particular.
Yeah, he has the chance to spend 4 days in Bordeaux, and in 4 days, he left a lot of traces in different chateaus. So we tell these stories, and then we follow a different wine producer from Bordeaux that are also producing wine in California, and Californian wine producer also producing wine in Bordeaux, to trace the link. And we also had the chance to interview Robert Parker at his place. It was just a kind of, luck. Yeah. We just asked him, he said yes. We were so surprised.
Lucky you.
So as you can hear, it's just a question of passion. We want
to that documentary it's called Eastbound, Westbound, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Is that on bluewine.com now, or is that a separate website?
Yeah, on bluewine.com, you just find post and the trailer.
Okay.
But we have a dedicated website for Eastbound, Westbound, and the film will be available in few days on Apple TV.
Great. Yeah, I was going to mention that for our listeners. It's if you like historic or stories about wine, this document is excellent. And Kim and I are all about the stories, Gerard, in the wine world, and you putting them all in one spot for people is just a very great resource.
Thank you for listening to us today on The Wonderful World of Wine. We are your hosts, Mark and Kim, and we are here today with our guest, Gerard Spatafora, who has a website called bluewine.com, your source for wine and spirits videos, films, and documentaries. You can find us every week on Franklin Public Radio, WFPR 102.9, and all of our past episodes are available on SoundCloud and iTunes. Welcome back, everyone, to The Wonderful World of Wine. We are speaking today with Gerard Spatafora from bluewine.com. And I wanted to ask you, you have said that you have been interested in wine since your 20s and have been involved in wine in Bordeaux, and you've worked in the wine industry. What was your, I would say, favorite thing to do as far as being a wine professional? It sounds like you have kind of divided it halfway between marketing and media and wine, and curious as to where you found the most fun in the world of wine.
The best thing is to discover a new vineyards, family. Independent winemakers, for example, no matter the place. I had the chance to travel in South America, in Mendoza, in Argentina, to visit winery. For the first time time you enter in the new winery house, you discover, I mean, the philosophy of the family there or the winemaker. You try to understand the alchemy about the soil and the climates. And finally, all the people behind the wine work there to work very hard to make sure that the wine could be great for at any vintage, you know. So this is what I really like. It's to discover things. So I used to do that. I mean, to source wine and then to sell it, as you can imagine. But it's the best part of the job. I mean, discovering new winery, new wine, and then tell the story to sell it.
Yeah, I was just going to say that ties into the whole storytelling aspect. And, we talk about this a lot when we are talking to people about not just marketing of wine, but also just that the romance and the passion that people have for wine. And so much of it is tied to those unique stories, either of the place or of the family or the history, or really any of those aspects. And the idea of film and, whether it's short film or, documentary or using wine as a background to tell a story really does seem like it's a great way to get those unique visions across, whether it's a documentary and it's based on real life or whether you're telling a fictional story. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer the documentaries or do you prefer sort of the fictionalized? Because I'm sure lots of people have lots of different opinions on wine being used as a background for telling a fictionalized story with wine.
Yeah, today I'm really on documentaries and not fiction, because you can have documentaries half fiction and half real. So I really like documentaries because it's the way to learn. Unfortunately, we can't travel all over the world anytime, especially the last 2 years because of COVID.
We all had to get really creative.
Exactly. So thanks to a documentary, even if it's a short one, I mean, you can learn a lot of things.
By listening to you, Gerard, we can hear your passion for wine, and it shows in the site, bluewine.com. My question for you now is there a idol for you in the wine world? Like you mentioned Robert Parker. Was there someone who you look up to really represent what wine is all about?
Not really. Of course, I like a few person around the world. I admire some person around the world, but I think the most important thing is to have the chance to meet people who are making wine. So sometimes those people are completely I used to travel in Sicily on the Etna and to taste volcanic wines. So I met some very small winemaker, and those people were just amazing. So great to meet them, to have the chance to talk to them. They share their story, they share their passion, and I would admire those people instead of someone famous.
It is nice to be able to give a voice to those really small producers, the not famous wine people who are still doing all of that really wonderful work and producing beautiful bottles that if you put their name on the back of the bottle, it wouldn't really mean anything to anybody, but it's what is in there and it's their life's work and all of these things. And they might not be famous, but they're still doing all of this amazing stuff in the world of wine.
When I was young, in the 20s or 30s, younger, right? Of course, I was impressed by all the great labels from Bordeaux, from California, from the Super Toscane in Italy, and so on. So, thanks to my work in the wine business, I had the chance to taste those wine without paying, which is a great advantage.
Very helpful.
But anyway, a new wine, it's always a new discovery. And I think as soon as you get older, you want to have an experience. You want to feel something. You are less interested by, just show off with a nice bottle, with a great label or something like this.
Gerard, tell me, do you have a favorite movie in the wine world that you like? Like on your site, you have the classics like Sideways and Bottle Shock. But is there a favorite movie of yours?
I really like the movie Wine and War.
Yeah.
It's in Lebanese.
Oh.
In Lebanon, sorry. And it tells the story about those winemakers who are making great wines under the bomb, under period of war and something like this. So I mean, they have courage and passion to make wine there in this place, weird place sometimes. So I really like this movie.
Yeah, and they have Wine and War. There's books, part 1 and part 2. I believe I just got part 2. I got to finish that. But yeah, I'm excited to hear you say that.
I was just going to say that we have so many wine books out there. I have bookshelves full at my house and at my work of books on wine, mostly nonfiction, history, kind of all over the place. But it doesn't seem like there's as much for film, and maybe that is changing. I feel like film is a really good medium for wine because not only can you can't taste the wine, but you can be walked through a vineyard and you can see exactly how things are done. And I think that is something that is one of the more difficult things to get across in book or in a wine class, that feel of actually being there. So I think that film really can have a real positive impact on getting that understanding of what's actually going on in a vineyard for people, whether they're students or whether they're just appreciators of wine.
During the COVID, I bought a book on internet. It's an old edition. The name is The Kingdom of Wine and Wine Geese. And it tells the story about the Irish people who left Ireland and came in France. And the first one was Hennessy, who settled up in Cognac to build Cognac Hennessy.
Sure.
And then you can learn a great story about a lot of Irish people who found that, famous wineries that still exist in Bordeaux and famous chateaux like Leuville-Barton in Saint-Julien. So this book was really interesting, and I'm sure a filmmaker or a producer will probably make a film one day about this story from the Irish people.
Yeah. I remember reading, I don't even know what book what was in, but those stories that as Americans, we always hear about when the Irish wave of immigration that came to the United States and, where did they land and how did that impact just everything about American culture when we had this influx of Irish immigration. So it was very interesting to read that perspective of those folks who also left Ireland, but then went to France instead of went to the United States. So we really only, hear the US side of it, but to know that these waves of immigration went out to other countries as well, and to hear about those stories of those immigrants in France and how they had this really major impact on the wine and beverage world because they had to leave home was very fascinating.
And it looks like the filmmakers are starting to pick up that people want to see more of these stories. And last year, there were 2 TV shows, one of which was on your show section called Grand Cru. There were 2 series at one time that were run in the United States, and Kim and I reviewed them. And I don't think they ever finished. It's sad because the film producers and these TV shows, they have these ideas that we can do wine stories and talk about wine. And Kim and I get excited, and then they kind of go off the air, Gerard. And I think, like you were saying, there's so many stories out there that can be put into a documentary or a movie, like Sideways or Bottle Shock was, which was a true story. There's just so much content. It excites me that it's out there. And that's why when we saw your site, I'm like, yeah, someone gets it. They're putting it all together for wine geeks like us who just want one spot to go to and see everything. There was one section you label as, it says Wine Council and Videos Wine Estate. What's the thought behind those 2 sections of the website?
Some council like Burgundy. In Burgundy, you have an association of wine producers, and they call the council board. Like in California, you have that kind of things as well. And sometimes those wine council, they invest in a filmmaker to produce great content, great documentary to tell the story about their region. So we decide to build the section for them. And regarding the chateaus, it's because very few, but we can find some very nice artwork, very short film made by few domain chateaus, vineyards.
So there's a lot of independent filmmakers who are making videos and documentaries for wineries that could be picked up on the site and you could help them promote as well.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. So it's the CIVB for Bordeaux that did.
Yeah.
That
CIVB is for Bordeaux.
Okay.
BIV is for Burgundy. Then you have the CIVC for Champagne and so on and so on.
Do they volunteer this for you, or did they look for compensation, or is there like rights to these type of things, like there are movie rights, or is there legal things involved?
No, I mean the council or the wineries, they just want to have audience. So for them it's very hard to go on TV and or streaming platform like Netflix or HBO, because it's considered as a advertisement or marketing, even if it's not the case. I mean, but you mentioned that. I mean, with a production company in the US who produce the series Grand Cru. I mean, it's very hard. As soon as you talk about wine, spirits, beer, I mean, everything about alcohol, it's very difficult because you have a lot of association around the world who are against alcohol.
Right.
And they make pressure on filmmaker, they make pressure on the production company or TV channel to avoid that kind of content.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Right. This is why I think we can take a place on the web as a streaming platform entirely devoted to wine and spirits.
And Kim and I, when we review them, we always have this thing, Gerard, where we kind of pick them apart, you know, how they're holding glasses wrong, or they're talking about grapes that are grown in places where they shouldn't be grown. And that's all fun for us, you know, the geeks coming out.
Well, I think that's the hard part about using wine as the backdrop for doing something that's fictional. So it's like, okay, so I have friends who are lawyers who won't watch any lawyer shows because they're like, oh, it's all done wrong. And doctors who won't watch any doctor, you know, set in a hospital show because it's just like, no, like that's not real or whatever. Sometimes I think that it's harder to do a fictionalized world of wine if you don't necessarily have everything being exactly spot on, because there are going to be people who pick it apart and see that this isn't necessarily hitting all of the right notes, I guess. So I wonder if that's one of the reasons why wine shows have been so hard to kind of catch on. We've got cop shows and lawyer shows and doctor shows and all over the place, but we haven't had, like, I don't know, the ER of wine shows that really made things brought things to the forefront. So maybe wine is just harder, or I don't know why it's so difficult, but.
No, you're right. I mean, it's a specific industry.
It's a hard backdrop. I think it's a hard backdrop. It's
a specific industry. And if you don't have the right contact, you can get in and shoot a film or something like this. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of wine producers are also very shy. They don't want to tell everything. They want to keep some secret and so on. I mean, it's the case in Rhone Valley or in Burgundy. You have a different famous vineyard producing very small quantity of wine, but it's very expensive. And they just don't want to see any journalists, cameras, and so on.
Sure. So you need to preserve that romance, right? Right. And we talk about that all the time, that there is this mystery to wine. And whether you are someone who has spent your life doing it, like we all have, or whether you haven't, there are all these elements that maybe you don't want to look too closely, because some of that will kind of go away. So I absolutely understand why certain producers wouldn't necessarily want to let cameras in and see everything.
Right. But the only way to make it is to be part of the industry. Thanks to my background, I have very good contact. I'm the owner of the Chateau Aubryon, and it's in my film. And two of my associates were used to be wine journalists, wine critics. So the wine producer, trust us to tell the right things, you know.
And that trust is important. They don't want to just let anybody in. This is still very much an industry that is built on personal relationships and on that trust.
Exactly.
And, especially if you are then going to produce something that the rest of the world sees, that is very important.
They really like to shake hands, to have you for dinner and something like this.
Yeah. Like you're a guest at their home is really what it feels like.
And before selling wine to you, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Even if you come as a buyer, so you have money to buy wine, but if they don't know you, if they don't like you, they won't sell you any bottle. And it's the same in the US. I mean, in California, you have a very top wineries. If you want to have wine, you have to be on the waiting list and wait for your turn.
Yeah. And especially those wines that are in such limited quantity and in such high demand,
Exactly.
You better be nice.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people listening who have passion for wine that have found some movie or documentary that has excited them and got them looking for a site like yours, Gerard, where they just want more content because they love hearing these stories. I know one of the things way back years ago, I saw a documentary on Canubi in Piemonte in Barolo. I think it was called Kissed by the Gods. And I just had this passion. So every time now I do a Barolo education or something, I'm always telling people, did you see this movie about Canubi? And they look at me like I'm nuts. But it's like getting a passion to find something like that. If someone seeking that knowledge, your site is just perfect to draw them in and get them interested and keep them up to date on what's going on. What I'm leading towards, Gerard, is do you see a future where somehow media is incorporated more on the like shelf talkers or wine labels in the future, where they're working towards filmmakers or people who are doing these documentaries are trying to incorporate some technology to get people to go to these more?
I don't see a wine merchant or retailer or website like Vivino's, wine app like Vivino's, pushing wine lovers to go watch documentaries, film, and so on. Because, as a retailer or online or with a physical store, as soon as you have someone entering in your store, you just want to sell wine.
Right.
Okay. So I think that kind of things would come from the wine council or a few wine producers.
And the only way a consumer will get that is if they go to their website, and hopefully they'd have some sort of document like that on it, right?
You were mentioning, the documentary about the Piedmont Canubi. Do you know Priorat? It's in Spain.
Sure.
So it's a very small appellation, and they are famous of producing Syrah, exceptional Syrah. There you can find a few wine producers that can get together, make a deal with a filmmaker to tell the story about Priorat and so on. So they would push, all their clients, all their visitors, wine lovers to go and see their movies and the other one. But I don't see that things coming from the wine merchants or retailers.
So it's a passion we have to push to real wine geeks, you think? Lovers of wine, people who want to know the story. That's kind of Kim and I's goals here on the show, Gerard. You mentioned earlier, what a small world the wine world is, and that was our whole point of the show, to be able to just see an article written and then reach out to you and then let our listeners know about your website. That's the good thing about the wine world. There's so much out there, and there's so many resources. There's people like you who have the passion and put it together. So we want to thank you for that. And Kim and I enjoy it.
I thank you. Thank you for having me and give me the opportunity to talk about this.
It's one of the fun things for us to be able to find different perspectives. And I think that this is a new sort of spin on media and wine. And as short video format like YouTube, like the little videos that people have on Instagram, we seem to have so many of that short content stuff kind of all over the place. So being able to have a resource for this longer format, kind of more serious documentary movie making stuff when it comes to wine, I think is a very valuable resource for people.
Thank you very much. I really want to help a filmmaker to think that it's possible, and now they have a way to promote their work, and to reach a new audience.
And to reach a new audience. Absolutely. And that's what we're here to do, is to, sort of spread the word for some of these folks like yourself or other people that we talk to that maybe have a little bit more of a niche that need a little bit of exposure. So we love to do this.
I'm really happy to have this discussion. Thank you very much for having me and giving the opportunity, the chance to promote my passion.
We appreciate it. Gerard, before you go, I have to ask you, I just saw, or I've seen a few times now, about the wine museum in Bordeaux. Is it as beautiful in person?
The Cité du Vin, it's an amazing place. And the Americans are helping the Cité du Vin a lot. Because in New York, you have an association I think it's called American Friends of the Cité du Vin.
Oh.
And they organize gala, charity, and so on to raise funds. To help the Cité du Vin to have great content to talk about wine from all over the world. Because the Cité du Vin is based in Bordeaux, but it's not just for Bordeaux, it's for the wine in general.
It's a beautiful building.
Yep.
I never realized it was designed to look like wine being poured into a decanter.
Yeah, exactly.
And when I heard that, I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. I never realized it.
I'll have to look at what the building looks like.
Oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful. And it's all state-of-the-art video technology inside. It kind of leads right into bluewine.com, really.
I'm going to have to watch the Andrei Chelichev documentary.
I recommend you.
I'm definitely going to do that. I teach a wine history class at Boston University, and we have a whole section on, sort of quote unquote modern American wines, and he's front and center.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
I come back on the wine museum. You know that's in Burgundy, I think it's the summer or September, they will open in Dijon a wine and climate center entirely devoted to Burgundy wines.
Nice.
It's going to be amazing.
I'm surprised there isn't one already.
No, not yet.
Soon.
And you mentioned climate. Have you seen any documentaries specific to climate change and the effects coming around?
Yep, unfortunately, yes. We have two of them on Blue Wine talking about the wildfire in California. And another about drought and so on. But unfortunately it's a topic.
Yeah, it's sad. We talk about it a lot.
Yeah, sort of top of everyone's mind.
So if we want to be more positive, I'm sure we will find documentaries or reports about climate change that would tell the story about new places in the world producing wine, such as Sweden or Belgium, and even north of France, in Bretagne. Now they try to introduce wine and produce.
England's been trending a lot over here,
right.
The big push.
The English sparkling. That's very good, actually.
That's our silver lining.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Gerard. It was a pleasure to have you on the show today. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Our first guest from Bordeaux, too, on the show. So. Thank you for joining us today on The Wonderful World of Wine. We've been your hosts, Mark Lindsay and Kim Simone, exploring all things wine with you. For more information about Kim, you can go to her website at commonwealthwineschool.com. For more information about myself, you can go to franklinliquors.com. To see the information of our special guest, Gerard, you can go to bluewine.com. We are here every week on Franklin Radio, WFPR 102.9. You can find all our past episodes on SoundCloud and iTunes, and you can send us any questions or comments on Facebook at The Wonderful World of Wine. Cheers.
Cheers.
Wine.